Hello and a very good afternoon. Hello and a very good morning to all News9 viewers. I'm Neha Bhan. Now let's take a look at some of the top stories of this hour. We begin with the blast that took place in Kalamassery in Kochi of Kerala. Now the death toll in the explosion has risen to 3. 51 people were injured in the incident. A 12-year-old girl from Malayattur who was undergoing treatment has reportedly succumbed to her injuries. At least 2,000 people were in attendance for a 3-day convention. After the blast, the injured were rushed to nearby hospitals, including Kalamassery Medical College. The Kerala police has sounded a high alert across all 14 districts following the explosions in Kochi. The blast was caused by IED and low-intensity explosives. The DGP and NIA, NSG, ATS teams and operatives have rushed to the site of the blast. Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan has termed the explosions that took place in Kochi's Kalamassery area as quote-unquote unfortunate. Kerala Chief Minister has also called for an all-party meeting in the state capital of Thiruvananthapuram. Right on your screens is the cabinet meeting that is being chaired by Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan. He's called for an all-party meeting in the state in the wake of the Kalamassery explosion that took the lives of 3 people and left 51 people injured. A 12-year-old girl from Malayattur who was undergoing treatment has also reportedly succumbed to her injuries. Tragedy struck at the Jehovah's Witness Convention in Kalamassery in Kerala, where an explosion struck the Zamra International Convention Centre. People were in attendance for a 3-day convention. 51 people have been injured, while 3 people have lost their lives. There on your screens, Veena George now also paying a visit to the hospital, meeting those who are injured. She also spoke with the media along with several other reactions coming in. Let's listen in.
I told you, see, we have 17 persons in different hospitals. 12 of them are in ICU and 4 are critically ill. 3 of them are ventilated. So we are giving every possible support that is to be provided to them. We are giving that all the support. Yes, most of them who are critically ill, they have burns around 50%, above 50%, around 60% and all. So I said 4 are critically ill, and the rest, they are almost stable. That's all the police will answer. So the police is content.
Health condition is concerned.
See, they all have burns. No other injuries are found. They have burns. Let the police conduct the inquiry. They will answer all the questions. Yes.
Many were injured. I met with some of the patients who are still recovering from their heinous injuries, but they are recovering, and I am hopeful that most of them who are today still in hospital, many of them have been discharged. Most of them who are in hospital will recover fully. There are still a few patients who are in the critical condition, and we should all pray for their recovery. But it's certainly a very difficult time for them and their families, especially for those who have lost their loved ones. And today I came to convey my solidarity with the families and especially to the medical staff who have done such a good job in protecting and treating them in the hospital.
केरल में जहां एक और बम ब्लास्ट की घटना की मैं निंदा करता हूं, लेकिन उसके पीछे आपको ये भी देखना होगा, कुछ दिन पहले ही कांग्रेस का आशीर्वाद और एक तरह से कम्युनिस्टों के नाक तले समर्थन के साथ वहां पर हमास के आतंकवादी संगठनों के तकरीर करते हैं, ऑनलाइन प्रोग्राम होता है, हजारों लोग इकट्ठे होते हैं और वहां की सरकार कार्रवाई नहीं करती है। आखिरकार ये कांग्रेस और कम्युनिस्ट इनका समर्थन इनको क्यों? एक भी नेता राहुल गांधी जी से लेकर शशि थरूर जी तक या इनके पार्टी के अध्यक्ष हो, किसी ने भी उस पर कोई बात नहीं की, कोई सवाल नहीं खड़े किए, चुपचाप समर्थन दिया है। इन आतंकी संगठनों का इस तरह से भारत में तकरीर करना और जहां के सांसद श्रीमान राहुल गांधी हैं जिस राज्य से, उनका कुछ ना बोलना इनकी चुप्पी साफ दिखाती है। कांग्रेस चुपचाप इनको समर्थन कर रही है।
Today morning at 9:40 a.m. approximately, there was an explosion in Zamra International Convention Center, Kalamasheri, in which one person died and 36 persons are undergoing treatment as per our information. In that convention center, Jehovah's Witness regional convention was happening, and all our senior officers, including the Commissioner of Police and others, are at the spot. They are investigating the matter. Our additional DG Law and Order is already on the way. He will be reaching soon, and myself will be reaching the incident place shortly. And we are examining the all angles, and we will find out who is behind this, and we will take very stringent action. At the same time, I would request everyone to maintain peace, remain calm, and I also request that no provocative posts or hate posts should be posted on the social media. If anybody is doing such thing, we will take very stringent action against them also. Thank you. Preliminary investigation shows it is a IED device, and we are examining it. At this stage, I cannot tell anything. Only after investigation, I can confirm you the details. Nobody spoke to me from the MHA. I will be going there right now. Okay.
Special team is there?
We will be constituting a special team for this today itself. Today, after I reach the spot, we will constitute a special team.
Several reactions coming in there. Anurag Thakur, Union Minister, also speaking on the incident. We also had Rajiv Chandrasekhar, the Union Minister, reacting to the bomb blast, and we also had the DGP from Kochi. Meanwhile, CCTV footage that was collected by the police at the convention center showed a blue Baleno racing out of the convention center ahead of the blast. That's the mystery blue car that was witnessed leaving in a hurry. Police is investigating the blue car that sped out of Kalamashri Convention Center just before a series of blasts hit the meeting. It is believed that the person who planted the explosives may have used the car as a getaway. The car is also having a fake number plate that has also come under scrutiny.
తీవ్రవాద విరుద్ధ స్క్వాడ్రన్ సెంట్రల్ ఏజెన్సీస్
Who are Jehovah's Witnesses? Now, Jehovah's Witnesses is a in fact Christian group which does not believe in Christian Trinity but believes in Jesus as Son of God and Jehovah as God. They follow a literal interpretation of the Bible, have no priests, and do not approve of the traditional priesthood as it is practiced in some of the other Christian groups. Several Christian denominations do not consider the Witnesses a Christian sect at all but feel that they are aligned closer to the Jewish faith. Jehovah's Witnesses came under severe persecution under the Nazis in Germany. Now the witness stand out as they do not join national armies as soldiers, as they want to stick to a neutral stand when it comes to wars between countries. Do not seek public offices or join politics. Do not accept blood transfusion and refuse to adhere to symbols of nationalism. Now, the witnesses believe that in fact, the witnesses believe that Armageddon is imminent and early establishment of God's kingdom is a pressing requirement. Now, the big question is, who is Dominic Martin? A man identified as Dominic Martin has claimed that he was behind the blast. He claims that he belongs to the Jehovah's Witnesses religious group. Dominic was staying in a rented place in Thammanam in Kochi. A video purportedly released by Martin had surfaced on social media confessing to the Kalamashri explosions. In the video, he claims he has a 16-year-long association with the Jehovah's Witnesses. The police have recovered the remote control used for the explosion from the place where the accused lived. He is currently being interrogated and has been slapped with charges including UAPA. Meanwhile, the PRO for the Jehovah's Witness said that their internal investigations has no record of Martin being associated with them. For all the viewers who have just joined in, this is the big story that in fact we are covering for all our viewers. Now, there's also row over Hamas leader's speech in Kerala. Hamas leader Khalid Mashal's virtual participation at a pro-Palestine event organized by the Solidarity Youth Movement, the youth wing of the Jamaat-e-Islami in Mallapuram, has stirred up a controversy. The event was organized on the 28th of October. The Solidarity Youth Movement raised the slogan, quote-unquote, uproot bulldozer Hindutva and apartheid Zionism, beg your pardon. Now, during its rally and attempted to strike a close relationship between the ideologies of Hindutva and Zionism. Former head of Hamas, Mashal, addressed the rally online and called upon the world to aid Hamas in its war against Israel. His address at the rally caused a huge row as India stands firmly against terrorism. The BJP state president Kerala, K. Surendran, called for the arrest of the organizers. The BJP Kerala said the ruling party in Kerala was trying to glorify Hamas under the guise of quote-unquote Save Palestine slogan. The BJP said the Hamas was a terror group and any connection with it or support to it should be condemned. The death toll in the Kalamashri explosion has risen to 351 people were injured in the incident. Now, that's in fact a 12-year-old girl from Malayatur who was undergoing treatment has also reportedly succumbed to her injuries. Health Minister Veena George paid a visit to the hospital to meet those who are injured. Meanwhile, Pinarayi Vijayan, the Kerala Chief Minister, also is now holding a cabinet meeting in this regard. He has assured a strict action against those who are behind this unfortunate incident which claimed the lives of 3 people and left 51 injured. Moving on to the big story of the day, the Supreme Court has denied bail to former Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia in Delhi excise policy scam case. The top court rejected 2 separate bail pleas of Delhi's former Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia. The Supreme Court had reserved its verdict on Sisodia's bail plea earlier this month. The 51-year-old has sought bail in 2 separate cases. He had sought bail in 2 separate cases against him. One filed by the Central Bureau of Investigation and the other by the Enforcement Directorate. Manish Sisodia was arrested by the CBI on the 26th of February for his alleged role in the Delhi liquor policy scam and has been in judicial custody since then. Meanwhile, the ED arrested him in a money laundering case stemming from the CBI case on the 9th of March after questioning him in Tihar jail. The judgment was authored by Justice Khanna, who, while reserving the case for a verdict on the 17th of October, had asked the Enforcement Directorate how an offence under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act would be made out in the absence of a bribery charge against Sisodia. Now, to discuss more on this, I am joined by News9 legal editor Ashok Bagaria right here with me in the studio. Thank you so much, Ashok, for joining me. I'd begin by asking you, why has Manish Sisodia been denied the bail yet again? What has been going on?
Well, in fact, this order was passed early in the morning at 10:45, and Justice Khanna passed a very cryptic order where he said that, look, we are not going into the legal issues which have been raised in this bail petition, which concerns larger questions like freedom of liberty of the accused and the rights of investigating agency. They are saying that we are not going into it, but we believe that the Enforcement Directorate has been able to establish a money trail of rupees 338 crore, which purportedly exchanged hands between those who wanted the Delhi excise policy tweaked and the policy makers, which in this particular case means the Deputy Chief Minister or former Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi, which is Manish Sisodia. So on this particular ground, the Supreme Court has said that we are not inclined to grant him bail at this point in time. However, the Supreme Court has made it clear that the trial against Manish Sisodia should be completed within a period of 6 to 8 months' time, and in case there is a delay in the trial proceedings, Manish Sisodia will be entitled to apply for bail again in 3 months' time. So here, Neha, what we are really looking at is that Manish Sisodia is going to be behind bars at least till the next general elections, which will be held in May 2024.
Right. Ashok, for the benefit of our viewers, do tell us what is the case against Manish Sisodia?
See, the basic allegations against Manish Sisodia are very simple, in the sense that the allegation is that there existed a excise policy for the region of Delhi. Now, when Arvind Kejriwal government thought that it was time to change this excise policy because they wanted more revenues to be generated out of this business of selling alcohol, which is regulated by the government of Delhi. So as a part of this, there was a committee which was set up by the Delhi government, which is the Ravi Dhawan committee, and the Ravi Dhawan committee was asked to examine the excise policy as it existed then. And the committee said that yes, there is a possibility that new changes can be made which will help the Delhi government mop up more revenues. And as a fallout of that recommendations, the Delhi government made changes in the existing policy, excise policy, and a new excise policy was made out. Now, what happened was that the case, the CBI registered a case under the Prevention of Corruption Act, saying that the Delhi government, or rather the face of Delhi government at that top point in time, who was also the excise minister, Mr. Manish Sisodia, got into some backroom maneuvering and also took bribes from big alcohol players who were basically manufacturers and distributors, and tweaked the policy in favor of them, and in the process made sure that the other players were sidelined from taking part in the business of selling alcohol in Delhi. And the Enforcement Directorate is basically probing the money that exchanged hand and is basically probing the money trail. So the allegation here is that rupees 338 crores were taken by Manish Sisodia and the Delhi government to tweak the excise policy, and the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate are at the moment probing those allegations.
Right. Well, Ashok, you know, he was arrested in February and we are in almost November now. He has not been given bail, not even once. Have we seen that happening in other cases as well, or is this, would you say that, you know, this is kind of seldom seen?
Well, these instances where cases of high corruption are involved, the courts have taken a very stringent stand. Now, when this case was argued in the Supreme Court of India, Senior Advocate Abhishek Manu Singhvi also tried to impress on the court that, look here, Manish Sisodia has been behind bars for almost 6 months. The investigations against him have been completed. and there is no chance that this man will be a flight risk even if he is granted bail. He is a sitting member of the Legislative Assembly. He is a politician. He will not, and he also assured the court that once he is released on bail, he will not try to tamper with evidence or try to influence witnesses. However, at this particular point of time, the court was confronted with a basic situation where they had to balance the right of accused to be granted personal liberty. Now, here is a case of personal liberty. Sisodia has been behind bars for the last 6 years. His personal liberty has been curbed. Now, here the court is confronted with a question how to balance his right to personal liberty and the right of an investigating agency to probe a high corruption. So here the court, after hearing the arguments, has come to a conclusion that, look, what we see here is that the ED has been able to establish that 338 crores money did exchange hands, and they have been able to establish that they are probing that money trail. So at this point in time, we are disinclined to grant him bail. Now, this is not a case where bail will never be granted. There have been more grievous offences in which the accused have been granted bail. But it's a question of when is the bail to be granted. The courts have to be satisfied that, the rights of the investigating agency is to probe the case are preserved, as well as the right of personal liberty of an accused is also held. So when the court is convinced that, okay, we believe this is time, that the investigations are over, the trial has proceeded, we feel it's safe to release him on bail. So that is exactly what the court has done today. They are saying that, look, complete the trial in 6 to 8 months' time. If there is a delay despite our directions, Manish Sisodia can come back to us within 3 months' time and say, look, that despite your directions, that complete the trial, nothing is moving ahead, and please release me on bail, because this does not serve any purpose to keep me behind bars for such a long period of time.
So what are other legal remedies available for Sisodia? Are there any at this point in time?
Oh, well, technically, this is a bail hearing. Now, once a bail gets dismissed by the Supreme Court of India, it's very unlikely that any other court in the country would actually entertain a bail plea from Sisodia. So, as far as Sisodia is concerned, he is at a roadblock at for this point in time. But the courts, as I pointed out earlier, the courts have said that, look, if there is a delay in the trial, in the conduct of trial, and if it is not concluded, or if it does not begin within 6 to 8 months' time, you please come back to us. We'll look into your bail application afresh, and then possibly, if we are convinced that you can be released on bail, we'll release you on bail.
So, Ashok, I also want to know from you, is this a witch hunt against the former Deputy Chief Minister, as alleged by the Aam Aadmi Party? The reason why I asked you the question about bail and, why hasn't he been granted bail in these many months was the fact that, there are political parties. There is also Aam Aadmi Party, which allege that he has not been granted bail because this is a political witch hunt. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Neha, in cases like these, where there are charges of bribery and corruption against a politician or a political party, the questions, the legal and political questions, become intermeshed. And in fact, even during legal proceedings, political arguments are made. Now, here also, in this particular case, also in Sisodia's bail plea, a political argument was being made that, probably the central government, which is directing the CBI and Enforcement Directorate, is conducting an investigation in a particular manner. And in fact, the whole Delhi excise policy was not something which was decided just by the Delhi government. It was vetted by the then Delhi Lieutenant Governor also. So, but the task before the court is to cut out the political arguments and decide the case only on the legal arguments. So here, this is exactly what the court has done. They haven't gone into or addressed the political questions which have been raised in the Supreme Court. But you're right that in cases like these, where politicians and political parties are involved, these questions, political questions and legal questions, become inextricably mixed. And even when the hearing is held in the courts, there is some degree of political posturing which happens in the courts.
Right, Ashok. Thank you very much for joining me with all of those details. Now, in fact, let's get you the latest from war zone Israel. We shift our focus to that area now. Today marks day 24 since Israel suffered potentially the worst attack in its brief history as a nation. Hamas carried out deadly attacks on southern Israel on the 7th of October. Here's the latest update from the war front. Israeli military intensifies airstrikes in Gaza. That's Israel-Hamas war day 24. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced quote-unquote second stage in the war as Israel prepares for a full-blown ground invasion. Hamas tunnels continue to pose a challenge for the Israeli Defense Forces. 8,005 Palestinians, including 3,342 children, have lost their lives in Gaza. In the ongoing Gaza war, that's in fact the death toll, the Palestinian death toll. Internet phone services restored for some in Gaza. World Health Organization's chief has requested for ceasefire and peace. Israeli forces strike military infrastructure in Syria. UN warns of growing hunger and desperation in Gaza. That's the latest from day 24 of the Israel-Hamas war. Now, facing sharp criticism from allies and opposition, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has apologized for an earlier statement in which he blamed the security services for failing to prevent the deadly Hamas attack on the 7th of October. Benjamin Netanyahu apologized and said that he was wrong in a post on X, formerly Twitter, shortly after deleting his original statement. Earlier, the Premier had posted on the same social media platform that he had never received any warnings of Hamas war intentions at any stage, stressing that all the security services, including the head of military intelligence and the head of the Shin Bet, were of the opinion that Hamas was deterred and wanted to come to a settlement. His comments evoked sharp criticism, following which they were deleted. Several security chiefs have also accepted responsibility for the massive failure. But Benjamin Netanyahu has, in fact, stated he is not going to take any blame for it. He has not taken any blame for the same so far. National Security Minister stressed that the issue isn't merely about specific warnings, but revolves around a flawed overall strategy. He pointed to the policy of containment, the illusion of deterrence, and the high cost of seeking temporary peace as the fundamental issues at the core of the problem. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has issued a warning of a prolonged and challenging conflict as Israel's military invasion of the Gaza Strip gets underway. This comes as Hamas demands the release of Palestinian prisoners in exchange for the hostages they seized 3 weeks ago. The United Nations has also raised concerns about the potential for a high civilian casualty count in Gaza. Netanyahu emphasized that Israel has entered a quote-unquote second stage in its operation against Hamas, involving ground forces and expanded attacks. He framed this as a fight for Israel's survival, asserting that they will be victorious. Listen in.
אתמול בערב נכנסו כוחות קרקעיים נוספים שלנו בשערי עזה, בפתחו של מעוז הרשע. זהו השלב השני של המלחמה, שמטרותיה ברורות. השמדת היכולות הצבאיות והשלטוניות של החמאס, והחזרת החטופים הביתה. שבכל שלב עד עכשיו, ובכל שלב מעכשיו, אנחנו נמצא כל אפשרות להחזיר את אחינו ואחיותינו החטופים לחיק משפחותיהם. המלחמה בתוככי הרצועה תהיה קשה וארוכה, ואנחנו ערוכים לכך. אחרי המלחמה, כולם יצטרכו לתת תשובות לשאלות קשות, זה כולל אותי, שהמהלך הקרקעי, שאנחנו הרחבנו אותו, יסייע לנו במשימה הקדושה הזאת. בזה אנחנו עוסקים עכשיו. אני לא יכול להגיד לך בהכרח שבפעולה הספציפית הזאת, ברגע הספציפית הזה, הם היו שותפים מיקרו-תכנון, אבל זה שהם מגבים את מכונת המלחמה של החמאס, הם מקיימים אותה, בלי הפיגומים האלה אין חמאס, כמו שאין חיזבאללה, בלי איראן.
אנחנו נפעל לעיצוב מחדש של המרחב, והלחימה בטרור מול עזה תימשך בשטח הרצועה לעומקה, בכל מקום, בכל זמן שנידרש לכך, בכדי להבטיח את ביטחון היישובים שיחזרו ויבנו מחדש באזור. התמרון הוא רק שלב אחד במהלך ארוך טווח שכולל היבטים ביטחוניים, מדיניים וחברתיים שיארכו שנים. לא נבטח עוד באחרים, נדיבים ככל שיהיו. רק אנחנו נגן על עצמנו ועל כל יהודי. מאחורי הדמעות שלנו עומדת מדינה ועומד כוח חזק וצודק. היום אני מבקש להגיד לכם, סכנת ההשמדה לא תהיה מנת חלקנו, אלא גורלם של מבקשי רעתנו.
Coming up next, a closer look at the concerns raised by a group lobbying for the families of Israeli hostages held by Hamas. They insist that the safety of their loved ones must be a top priority for the Israeli government, especially as military operations in the Gaza Strip intensify. Take a closer look.
A group lobbying for the families of Israeli hostages held by Hamas say the safety of their loved ones needs to be a top priority for the government. Their concerns come as the Israeli military expands ground operations in the Gaza Strip.
Keep pushing.
Adva Adar believes her 85-year-old grandmother is in Gaza, based on photos and footage purporting to show her capture. Reuters could not independently verify the location or date of filming of videos showing hostages being kidnapped.
My grandmother doesn't have the time to wait. She needs to be back home now. She's ill and she needs medication and she needs medical care.
On Saturday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel's goals in the war were to destroy Hamas's governing and military capabilities, as well as return the more than 200 hostages.
As her boyfriend, I truly afraid that these two goals is like in conflict with each other.
Noam Alon's girlfriend, Inbar Hyman, is one of the hostages.
I think that first, the hostages should be free.
Israel has tightened its blockade and bombarded Gaza since Hamas gunmen stormed across the border into Israel on October 7th, killing at least 1,400 people, as well as taking the hostages.
We are not political people or, military people. We are two simple people that try to save our sister.
Leah and Leon Yanai believe their sister Moran was taken hostage at the Nova Music Festival.
We found a clip from TikTok with begging for her life.
And they say time is of the essence.
If Moran is listening to us, Moran, we are united together. We love you so much.
Continue to be positive as you are. And think about the big hugs we're all going to give you when you come back. And I want you to know that we're doing everything we can to bring you back home as soon as possible.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Saturday, the 28th of October, that Israeli forces had unleashed the second phase of the Gaza War as they pressed ground operations against Hamas terrorists, vowing to quote-unquote destroy the enemy above ground and below ground.
Israel is now in its second phase of the Gaza War, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Saturday, adding that forces are carrying out ground operations against Hamas militants. The war inside the Gaza Strip will be difficult and long, and we are prepared for it, he said. This Israel Defense Forces footage purports to show that second stage unfolding in the Hamas-ruled Palestinian enclave. Netanyahu once again called on Palestinian civilians to leave the northern Gaza Strip, the focus of Israel's attack. Israel has tightened its blockade on Gaza and bombarded it for 3 weeks now. People are isolated, with a telephone and internet blackout that began on Friday. Many buildings there have been reduced to rubble. People are scrambling for food, water, fuel, and medicine. Gaza health authorities say over 7,500 Palestinians have been killed in the campaign. On October 7th, an assault by Hamas killed 1,400 Israelis in the deadliest day of the nation's 75-year history. Meanwhile, there has been growing concern internationally over the toll from the bombing in Gaza and calls for a pause to let aid get to civilians. Here's UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk.
I am raising alarm about the possibly catastrophic consequences of large-scale ground operations in Gaza and the potential for thousands more civilians to die. Continued violence is not the answer.
Also on Saturday, Netanyahu met with families of Israelis being held hostage in Gaza by Hamas, vowing to exhaust every possibility to bring the more than 200 of them home.
The Palestinian Red Crescent Society has reported that Israeli airstrikes on Sunday severely damaged parts of the Al-Quds hospital in Gaza City. The Israeli military had reportedly made 2 phone calls to the hospital urging them to evacuate. However, the hospital administration argued that evacuation was impossible as it houses hundreds of patients, including children in incubators and individuals in the intensive care unit. Many of the approximately 14,000 people seeking shelter at the hospital were Palestinians displaced by the ongoing conflict between Hamas and Israel. Now, the PRCS has accused Israel of intentionally launching airstrikes near Al-Quds hospital with the apparent aim of forcing medical staff, displaced individuals and patients to leave the facility. Videos from the Palestinian Red Crescent depict dust filling the hospital's hallways, with some people seen trying to put on face masks. Meanwhile, thousands of protesters rallied in cities in Europe in support of the Palestinians as Israel intensified the war on the Gaza Strip. In one of the biggest marches in London, protesters marched through the centre of the capital, demanding Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to call for a ceasefire. Take a look at your screens.
Palestine! 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 From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free!
The excuse of retaliation or self-defense, it just doesn't cut it anymore. It never did. It's been 75 years of illegal occupation, and it's not self-defense. That the occupation was not self-defense. Keeping people in what is essentially a concentration camp is not self-defense. It never has been.
My fear is that there will be no more Palestine. At the moment, it's not free Palestine, it's safe Palestine. That is my fear, that they will be wiped off existence.
If you wanted to fight someone, just go fight him face to face in a single combat. Don't involve the citizen there. The kids been targeted. The civilians have been targeted in their home. The people that are fighting there, they're not tourists. They're fighting for their lands. So you must act immediately as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. You must act immediately to cease fire, to allow the humanitarian aid to enter Gaza, to save what is left from the people now.
Today is a very dark day in our history because of what is happening in Gaza, and people have gathered here to at least try and bring about a ceasefire and the loss of life. Every minute we waste, people are being killed in Gaza in real time. And I think people understand that, and that's why thousands, tens of thousands of people are gathered here today to try and end that.
Meanwhile, in Sydney, thousands of Palestinian supporters rallied on Sunday, calling for an end to the violence in Gaza. Protesters marched through the city to chants of Free Palestine and carried signs and bloody dolls. An Israeli march took place with a protest in Sydney's Martin Place that featured shoes, prams and wheelchairs, symbolizing hostages taken by Hamas. Switching to New Zealand, thousands of New Zealanders rallied in the capital Wellington, marching to Parliament House in support of the Palestinian people. Those who attended the rally held placards reading Free Palestine and Palestinian flags while chanting. Jews for a Free Palestine, that's the placard held by one of the protesters. Moving on to important geopolitical developments. Earlier this year, China helped broker a deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia to normalize relations after a 7-year diplomatic rift. Now, as a key economic partner of many Middle East countries and buyer of both Saudi and Iranian oil, it seemed Beijing had the economic leverage and goodwill to play a mediator in future conflicts. In recent developments, China's aspirations as a major player in the Middle East are facing a challenge due to Israel's conflict with Gaza, which escalated after the 7th of October Hamas attacks on southern Israel. Now, the situation has created a complex dynamic for Beijing as it maintains interests on both sides of the conflict. While China has traditionally supported a two-state solution and even provided support to the Palestinian Liberation Organization in the past, it is also Israel's second largest trading partner today. Displaced Palestinians were seen taking refuge under makeshift tents in Khan Yunis, located in the southern Gaza Strip. Israel's military had previously issued a call for Palestinians in the northern Gaza Strip to evacuate as they anticipated an impending Israeli operation. Israel's rationale for these calls is the claim that Hamas has positioned its weapons and forces among civilians, urging the residents of Gaza to relocate southwards for their own safety. This has led to over 1.4 million Gazans leaving their homes for temporary shelters due to Israel's most extensive bombardment to date. Do remember, while these people, the Palestinians, have been asked to seek shelter in southern Gaza, Israel has also been striking parts of southern Gaza. Meanwhile, Palestinian men bid farewell to a man killed by Israeli forces during a raid into the West Bank town. An eyewitness said that the Palestinian man named Ramah threw stones at the Israeli troops, who then responded with gunfire. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, 3 Palestinians were killed by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank overnight. Now, Sunday's morning saw Gaza's sky filled with thick black and white smoke accompanied by loud explosions. Israeli forces initiated ground operations against Hamas's Gaza, marking what Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described as the second phase of a 3-week-old conflict aimed at defeating the Palestinian terrorist group. As a result of this offensive, Gaza's residents faced a nearly complete blackout of communication and the internet, which hampered rescue operations. Nevertheless, there are reports that phone and internet services are gradually being restored in Gaza. There were loud explosions on the Gaza skyline on Sunday, with the sound of gun battles as Israel expanded ground operations in the enclave. The Israeli military said on Sunday its fighter jets have struck hundreds of Hamas targets in what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called the second phase of a 3-week-old war. Medical authorities in the Gaza Strip, which has a population of 2.3 million people, said on Sunday 8,005 Palestinians, including 3,324 minors, had been killed in Israel's campaign to eradicate the Iran-backed Hamas terrorists. Meanwhile, smoke was again seen over the Gaza skyline. Blasts continue to ring out even as silence can be felt across the strip. Take a look.
I think this is
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of The Bulletin. Thank you very much for joining me. You have a blissful day ahead. Goodbye.
BrahMos. Stealthy, lethal, precise. It flies at 3 times the speed of sound and cuts through a warship like a hot knife through butter.